So balance changes in 10.2. You're going to remove the Sommers. I'm not exactly sure why they're going to remove the Sommers, but okay, whatever. I do have it. It's a nice ship. She's not super crazy amazing, but whatever. They're sharpening up the Kansas a little bit, giving it a little more pen, giving more pen to the Minnesota. I think all these things are not... I don't think either of these are wildly out of balance, so giving a little bit of a buff. Hey, that's cool. Talen, AP shells have a little more pen. I don't know if that's necessarily an issue, but that fits with the line, so I'm sure that's okay. They're giving the Hipper a small DPS increase, but here's the big ones. This is the carrier stuff. So for the Hosho, originally with the remake, the Hosho only dropped one torpedo at a time. All of the tier 4 carriers did. But there was a point a few months in where they thought, well, since everything else drops like 2 torpedoes at a time, why don't we just make it more consistent? So they changed it to 2, but they didn't really change the damage. So suddenly, like, this little tier 4 thing where it'd come out and it'd rocket something for like 2,000 damage, or it'd go and torp something for like, 4,000 damage because there's a little bit of torpedo protection, or it would go and bomb something for 2 to 4,000 damage. Suddenly it all of a sudden got to 10,000. And it's like the numbers just went stupid. And then everybody started playing the Hosho as a giant meme so that they could go farm damage and kill a bunch of kids. Which sucked. It was a dickish thing to do. So they're changing the number of torpedo bombers in the squad from 6 to 5, so you'll have 5 planes to drop with. You'll probably lose 1 over the course of 4 drops, so it'll effectively be 4 drops. Like, realistically, 4. Even though tier 4 AA is bad, that's still 4 separate drops to be chiseled down from. The size of an attacking torpedo bomber flight lowered from 2 to 1, so they're going back to the single drop, which is fine. That's what the Hermes has right now. The Rhine has a double drop, and the Langley still has a double drop, but they've reduced the damage on the Langley, and the Rhine already had reduced damage torps because it's German, so it's workably okay. Still, it's probably the strongest weapon on the Langley with the double, because that's theoretically 7,000 potential damage, but 7,000, 5,800, I mean, it's within shouting distance. Langley is cripplingly slow, so technically it has some pretty pronounced weaknesses. Number of torpedo bombers on the deck lowered from 9 to 8, so any losses you have will stick slightly harder. Same thing, restoration time goes up, so any losses you have will stick slightly harder. So doing this stuff means it's less likely to just only use the torpedoes and ignore everything else. At some point, even with tier 4 shit-tastic AA, you're going to lose 2, 3, maybe 4 planes and be like, well, son of a bitch, I guess I have to bomb something now, or I have to rocket something now. Because those are the lower DPS options. So it's not a bad thing, because tier 4 is a training tier. Tier 4 is to learn how to use the ship. Yes, you are impacting the battle. Yes, you are doing something, but because AA is so incredibly soft, the damage numbers have to be low to gate your impact on the battle. And they're they increase the torp damage a little, but still going from 10,800 damage with a double torp drop to 5,800 damage, it's a huge change, and it makes the Hosho fit more comfortably into the tier 4 slot that it was intended to. Basically, when they double dropped the torpedoes, they completely fucked the numbers, and it's stuck that way for like almost a year now. I'm glad it's changed. It's a good change. For the Langley, maximum torpedo damage lowered. It still has the double drop, but it is lowered, which is good. So it was never the 10,800. It's 7,000 is what it's going to end up being. But still, it used to be pretty nasty at the 8,400, 8,450, whatever. Chance to hit, or flooding chance is reduced. One thing to remember about the chance to cause flooding on like destroyer torps, this number might be like 250% or 300%. Like it's a much different number on a surface ship torp. So 30%, that gets weighted against the ship's natural resistance and also gets weighted against the torpedo protection reduction. It gets thrown up against all these different modifiers that are going to reduce what it's actually going to be. So 30% may sound like 30% of the time you're going to get a flood. Nah, it's probably more like 10% or 8% of the time you get a flood. But whatever. Richthofen, the area of the dive bombers is changing. So if we look at this, I believe this is a Montana. Anyway, if you look at this, you know, there's just a little teeny bit of edge that could potentially drift off the side. Whereas in this case, there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of edge, and the German bombers are really weighted heavily toward being on this really out part of the eclipse, whether it be down here, whether it be up there. Sometimes they drop in a line, but very often they're going to be out on this outer edges. So dropping a Montana with this, once you've kind of mastered the drop and you figured out how to get the reticle exactly where it needs to be at exactly the right time and make the drop as quickly as possible, it's not that you guarantee three citadels, but it's not that it's unlikely. You know, you can almost expect it. You can be disappointed, but you can expect it. And with the 2600 damage, repeatable, dependable, it's brutal. This, on the other hand, you may get the reticle in the right place, the perfect time, over and over, but it's going to be much less likely to ever expect 2600 damage. It'll be more likely that if you get the perfect drop, you can expect 2 citadels. And even then, it still has to citadel. It's not a guaranteed thing. So it's not that 2600 can't happen, but it's kind of like winning the lottery kind of happening, whereas 2 or just 1 is going to be more normal as opposed to 2 or 3 being more normal. So the change in the reticle side, I think it's a good change, because 26 is kind of like a jackpot. It's a pretty crippling amount of damage, especially, you know, against the stuff you're running at tier 10. It's not going to outright kill a ship. It doesn't remove it from the game. It doesn't just completely annihilate it, even if it's against cruisers. But it's bad. And also, this being a battleship, in situations where you have to bomb a cruiser, which is going to be almost like half the thickness of this, there's so much more space to miss that bombing cruisers becomes even less viable. And in a competitive situation where predominantly you're stuck up against cruisers, if it's even less likely that the bombs hit now, it makes the Richthofen a little bit more scary to pick it. Doesn't mean that when it compares to other carriers that it's just completely fucking gone. That's not the case, because the bombing reticle for the US line is not very helpful toward carriers. The bombing reticle from the British line is definitely not cruiser focused, sorry. But adding additional inconsistency is important. It does suck to have a jackpot situation where it's like, man, I wish I did something here. But having the consistency with such strength is a little, it's too much. Fixed an error that resulted in excess slowdown when engine boost was used. Cool. I don't know if that's the gating mechanic where when you speed up it slows down and then just kind of slows down shortly. It could be that. I don't think it's that. I think that was an intended change. Maybe this is something else, but maybe this is, I don't know. We'll have to see what the hell this means. I'll be honest, I don't know what that is. There's the implacable, damage went up, fire chance went up. Cool. It's the thing that makes the implacable hard is the size of the reticle. So actually going back to this discussion, this reticle ends up being like even bigger than this. So it almost goes from this side to this side. There's just so much room for it to miss that not only is the pen value low, but the RNG is fucking crazy. So it's incredibly unlikely that, you know, you get extreme amounts of damage. And bumping this up by 300, I mean, that's cute, but you either have to buff the pen or you have to shrink the reticle if you want increased damage. That being said, kind of like with this, if you shrink the reticle to where it's going to fully fit on a Montana, you can bomb a Montana religiously for 18 to 25,000. If you had an audacious reticle, which is obviously down here, where they're going to do the same thing with the bomb damage and stuff. So the pen is the gate. If you find something you can pen, you can beat the ever-living crap out of it. But oftentimes you find something that you can't, because people do like to have a thicker deck or some kind of HE resistance. Over for the Audacious, literally the same thing. And then we also have this, the number of rockets were reduced by 2. It doesn't say anything about changing the reticle, so okay. You throw 6 less rockets because it's 3 planes that fire. I mean, out of that many. That's what, 42 rockets is now dropped down to 36. I mean, it's still a lot. I don't know how much this is really going to be impactful. What this could actually be is, I think, doing a little demo or a demonstration, because somebody was saying the Audacious can't do damage. I went into a training room and shot it like a Baltimore, because it's covered in 27 millimeter and the rockets do 28. And we hit the Baltimore for about 15,000, which is quite a bit, especially with HE damage. So perhaps this is more reducing the maximum damage on something that you're going to hit with all the rockets, or many of the rockets. So they're just reducing basically the high end of the damage, as opposed to just reducing the rocket damage itself. I don't think there's any other carrier things in here, so that just kind of covers all this, and that way I can clip this and make it a little like, people ask me about this, so I made a video. Yeehaw.